You know that neighbor everyone is afraid of? The one who knows exactly which day you put the recycling bin out at the wrong time? The one whose lawn is so aggressively perfect it looks artificial? Nice to meet you. That's me. Most people look at a 62-year-old widow living alone in a house that's far too big for one person, and they feel pity. They think loneliness is a punishment. But let me tell you a secret. For me, loneliness was a promotion. It was the moment I finally took control. For the last 3 years, my life has functioned like a Swiss watch. No shouting, no wet towels left on the bedspread, no surprises. My world was beige, silent, and absolutely safe. I honestly thought I had won the game of life. I thought nothing could shake me anymore. My grief for my husband, Roberto, had been processed, filed, and organized into a manageable nostalgia. I missed him, of course. I missed the warmth on the other side of the bed. But I didn't miss the chaos. I didn't miss the crumbs. I had curated my existence into a museum of order. Until that Tuesday morning. My biological clock woke me up at 5:59 a.m., as it always does. I deactivated the alarm 1 minute before it could ring because I detest starting the day with a fright. I went down to my immaculate kitchen, the morning light filtering through the blinds in parallel lines on the floor. I prepared my coffee. Water at 90 degrees, grounds leveled with the back of a knife. I walked to the living room window. It was my sacred ritual, watching the neighborhood sleep while I reigned over my little empire of silence. The clock on the mantelpiece chimed 7 times. The silence was so deep I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the other room. That was when the nightmare began. It didn't arrive slowly. It arrived with a metallic crash and the screech of worn-out brakes that made my bone china cup tremble in its saucer. A truck, but not just any truck. It wasn't a discreet, white moving van from a reputable company. It was a monstrosity. An old, beaten-up beast painted a shade of mustard yellow that should be illegal in any civilized municipality. It roared up onto the sidewalk of the house next door, number 405, the house that had been empty for 2 years, the house that acted as a buffer zone for my peace. It crashed the automatic sprinklers on the curb. I heard the plastic crunch. The driver's door groaned open. I expected to see men in uniforms, brute movers, people I could report to the homeowners association. But the driver didn't get out. She got out. If I am the definition of order, that woman was the apocalypse. Imagine a volcanic eruption trying to disguise itself as a human being. She was wearing a painter's jumpsuit smearing with violent splashes of red and blue, heavy combat boots. Who wears combat boots in a quiet suburb at 7 in the morning? And she had wild gray hair tied back haphazardly with a neon orange scarf. She wasn't stressed about the move. She was laughing. She climbed down from the cab, shouting into a cell phone wedged between her shoulder and ear, all while balancing a gigantic fern that looked like a prehistoric beast in her arms. "No, Bento," her voice pierced through the double glazing of my window as if it were tissue paper. "If the sculpture doesn't fit through the door, we break the door, not the sculpture. Priorities, darling." I stood paralyzed behind the linen curtain. Break the door? Who were these people? At that moment, she tripped over the tall grass of the neglected front yard. She almost fell face first into the dirt. Any normal person would have died of embarrassment. Her? She let out a loud, raucous laugh, the kind that comes from the belly, straightened herself up, and looked directly at my house. For a split second, it felt like she saw me peeking through the crack in the curtains. And the worst part? She smiled. A huge, invasive smile. She waved with her free hand, shaking the fern as if she were in a carnival parade. I yanked the curtain shut with a snap. My heart was racing, banging against my ribs. My peace hadn't just ended. It had been run over by a yellow truck. I spent the rest of the morning trying to pretend the world hadn't turned upside down, but it was impossible. The noise coming from next door was an affront to decency. Furniture being dragged across wooden floors, the sound of things shattering, followed by more laughter, never apologies. And to top it all off, the music. Jazz. Not soft, elevator jazz. It was a frantic, screaming saxophone that seemed to vibrate in the very walls of my living room. It was chaotic. It was unstructured. It was everything I hated. By 4 in the afternoon, I couldn't stand being inside the house anymore. The walls felt like they were closing in. I fled to the garden. That was my territory, my sanctuary. I put on my gardening gloves, adjusted my straw hat, grabbed my pruning shears, and went to take out my frustration on the rose bushes. I was concentrating on surgically removing a thorn when I heard it. "Neighbor! Hey, neighbor! Of the killer roses!" I froze. The voice came from over the fence. I tried to ignore it. Snip. I cut another branch. "Wow, watch out with those shears! You handled that thing like a weapon. I like it. I'm Aurora." I had no choice. I turned slowly, keeping the shears raised at chest height, a silver barrier between us. The scene on the other side of the wall was an assault on real estate values. The lawn was covered in torn cardboard boxes, blank canvases, a headless mannequin, and I swear to God, a purple velvet sofa sitting there on the grass. And there she was, Aurora. She had changed into loose shorts and an old t-shirt, leaning over my fence as if we were childhood friends. She was extending a mug towards me. "Leftover coffee," she said, breathless, but with that irritating smile still plastered on her face. "It's strong. It'll wake the dead. Want some?" I looked at the mug. It was a misshapen thing, made of thick, lumpy ceramic. It was aggressively ugly. "I've had my coffee," I replied, my voice dry. "At 7 this morning." At 7? Good Lord! At 7, I was still dreaming I was a trapeze artist. "Take it. It's a peace offering." I looked at her hands. They were stained with blue paint. Her nails were short and unpolished. There was a thin white scar on her right waist, and she smelled. She smelled of turpentine and cinnamon. It was a scent that invaded my nose without asking for permission. I should have said no. I should have turned my back and walked into my cool, clean kitchen. But she was looking at me with such frankness, such shameless curiosity, that I suddenly felt ridiculous in my iron lady pose. I took off my right glove, reluctantly, and took the mug. It was warm. "Marta," I said. Marta, solid name, the name of someone who pays their bills on time. Did I guess right? Punctuality is a virtue, Aurora, just like silence. She laughed, a raspy laugh that scared the sparrows out of the oak tree above us. "Oh, the jazz! It's loud, isn't it? I need to feel the floor shake to paint. It's a vibration thing, but I'll turn it down." "I would appreciate that. The neighborhood rules regarding noise pollution are quite specific." She leaned in further, invading my personal airspace, and looked deep into my eyes. Her eyes were brown, flecked with green, and far too alive. "Do you always talk like that, Marta? Like you're reading a contract?" I felt my face heat up. A flush rose up my neck. "I talk like a civilized person." "Must be exhausting," she whispered, winking at me. Before I could formulate a retort, she tapped the fence twice and walked away, back into the middle of her mess. "I'll turn down the sound, but I can't promise I'll stop making the floor shake," she shouted over her shoulder. I stood there, frozen in my perfect garden, holding that hideous mug. I took a sip. It was terrible. Too sweet, too strong, thick as tar. I almost spat it out, but I didn't throw it away. I just stood there, holding the mug, feeling its warmth seep into my cold hand, staring at that absurd purple sofa on the neighbor's lawn. Night fell, and the silence returned. But you know when silence feels heavy? When it feels less like peace and more like a vacuum?
3 days. That was how long the Cold War of number 405 lasted. After that ridiculous night where I found myself sitting on my bedroom floor like a fugitive, hiding from my own curiosity, I decided that the best strategy was absolute indifference. I built the walls of my routine even higher. If Aurora played jazz, I played Bach at the maximum volume permitted by decency. If she painted on her porch wearing those circus clothes, I tended to my garden dressed as if I were attending high tea with the Queen of England. I didn't look to the side. I didn't accept coffee. I was Switzerland, neutral, armored, and inaccessible. It worked. My house became my hermetic sanctuary once again. The air was still. The dust motes danced only where I allowed them to. It was Thursday afternoon. I was sitting in my reading armchair, upholstered in sand-colored linen, positioned near the window but not too near, reading a historical novel. The silence was absolute, punctuated only by the turning of pages and the rhythmic breathing of the central air conditioning. That was when I saw it. At first, I thought it was an illusion, a floater in my tired eye, but no. On the immaculately white ceiling of my living room, exactly above the geometric center of the room, there was a spot. It wasn't a common damp spot, yellow or gray, the kind that suggests an old pipe. It was blue, an electric, vibrant, aggressive turquoise. I closed the book slowly, feeling my stomach tie itself into a knot. The spot pulsed. It grew. And then, defying all the laws of my private property, it gave way. Ping. A drop fell. It wasn't water. It was a viscous, colorful substance. It traveled through the air in slow motion and landed with mathematical precision right in the center of my Persian rug. The rug Roberto gave me for our 30th anniversary. The rug that cost the price of a small car and that I forbade people from stepping on with shoes. The drop exploded into a perfect blue circle on the beige wool. I didn't scream. Women like me don't scream. We act. I stood up, trembling not with fear, but with a glacial fury. I looked at the ceiling. Ping, ping. 2 more drops. The rhythm was accelerating. The blue was spreading, infiltrating the fibers of my life, staining my history. "Oh no," I whispered. "Not today." I marched to the kitchen. I didn't go get a cloth. I went to get a metal bucket. I placed it under the leak to contain the chromatic hemorrhage and, without even looking in the mirror, I walked to the front door. I was wearing velvet slippers. It didn't matter. This was a medical emergency. My house was bleeding blue. I crossed the garden that separated our worlds. Her grass was already ankle deep. There was a sculpture made of crushed soda cans near the entrance, something that looked like a totem to the god of tetanus. I rang the doorbell. Once. Long. Insistent. No one answered. I rang again, this time punching the button. I heard a noise inside, something heavy falling, glass breaking, and a scream. "It's open!" Aurora's voice came muffled, distant. "If you're the pizza guy, come in and save me for the love of God." The pizza guy? The indignation almost made me turn back, but the image of my Persian rug dying a slow death propelled me forward. I turned the knob. The door was unlocked, of course. Security was not a concept that inhabited that house. I entered, and I stopped. The floor plan of her house was identical to mine, the same walls, the same windows, but it was like walking into a version of my home hallucinated on acid. There were no sofas. There was no television. The floor was covered in plastic tarps poorly taped down with masking tape. The walls were lined with charcoal sketches, distorted faces, dreamlike landscapes. The smell was a slap in the face. Turpentine, cheap incense, and burnt coffee. In the center of the living room, where the coffee table should have been, there was a bathtub. An antique, cast iron, claw-foot bathtub filled with a turquoise liquid. And Aurora was there,
Not inside the bathtub, but perched precariously on a painter's ladder next to it, trying to hold onto a hose that seemed to have its own life. The hose was connected to some kind of improvised pump system on the ceiling, which had obviously exploded. Blue water was spraying everywhere, on the walls, on the canvases, and crucially, onto the floor where a massive puddle was forming and flowing happily toward the right wall, the wall that divided her house from mine. Aurora was soaked, her gray hair plastered to her face, her t-shirt transparent from the wetness, laughing and cursing at the same time. "Help me!" she shouted, without seeing who it was. "The waterfall of melancholy has turned into the tsunami of desperation." I stood in the doorway, observing the chaos with the detachment of a coroner at a crime scene. "You are flooding my living room," I announced. My voice came out cutting, rising above the noise of the water. Aurora spun her head so fast she almost fell off the ladder. She wiped her eyes with the back of a blue-stained hand and focused on me. "Marcia, thank God. It's not paint, it's food coloring and water. It's biodegradable. The performance requires the water to circulate, you understand? The cycle of tears. But the pump blew and... Wait, your living room? My Persian rug looks like a Smurf that's been run over. Turn this off, now." "I can't reach the outlet," she pointed to the other side of the room. The sculpture blocked the path. I looked. Indeed, a hideous structure of barbed wire and old doll heads was blocking the way to the wall. I could have left. I could have called the police, the fire department, the homeowners association president. But there was something in that flagrant incompetence that flipped an ancient switch in my brain, the matriarch switch, the switch of the person who fixes things. I took a deep breath. The air smelled of dampness and madness. "Get down from there before you break your neck," I ordered. I walked into the room, dodging the puddles with an agility I didn't know I still possessed. I ignored the barricade of dolls. I went straight to the side hallway, where I knew the breaker box was, because after all, the houses were twins. I opened the metal panel. I located the living room breaker. Click. The hum of the pump died instantly. The spray from the hose lost power, wilted into a sad stream, then drips. Silence. Only the sound of water dripping on the plastic. I went back to the living room. Aurora was climbing down the ladder, defeated, dripping blue water on the wooden floor. She looked smaller now, less volcanic. She just looked like a wet, tired woman in the middle of a mess she had created herself. "Wow," she said, running her hand through her hair. "I cut the power. I was going to try plugging the hole with chewing gum." "Chewing gum does not solve hydraulic pressure, Aurora. And the next time you decide to install an industrial fountain in a residential living room, consult an engineer or a psychiatrist." She looked at me. I was there, dry, impeccable, arms crossed. And she was there, a chromatic disaster. "The rug," she started, her voice low. "Is it very expensive?" "It is irreplaceable. It has sentimental value. Which is worse, because you have money, but at our age, we don't have time to create new memories." She bit her lip. For the first time, I saw the spark in her eyes flicker. She looked around at the destruction of her own art, at the blue water staining everything. "I'm a hazard," she murmured. "I get carried away with the vision and forget the physics. I'm sorry, Marta, truly. I'll pay for professional cleaning. I'll buy another one. I'll clean it." She moved to get something, but slipped in her own puddle. She grabbed the edge of the bathtub to keep from falling. That disarmed me. The vulnerability, the lack of grace. She wasn't an enemy. She was a grown child playing with forces she didn't understand. I felt a strange pang in my chest. It wasn't pity. Was it solidarity? I pulled a packet of tissues from my cardigan pocket, I always have tissues, and held it out to her. "Wipe your face. You look like a depressed avatar." She laughed. It was a weak, nervous laugh. She took the tissue, leaving a blue mark on my fingers. "Thank you, neighbor." "Don't thank me yet. We have work to do." "We do?" "My rug. If the stain dries, it's over. Wool absorbs pigment and never lets go. We need to act now. And you are coming with me." "Me?" She looked down at herself. "I can't enter your house like this. I'm a walking stain. I'll line the floor with newspaper. Move, Aurora. Time is the enemy of stains."
I told myself it was just coffee. A social obligation, a diplomatic treaty signed with caffeine to ensure that no further blue liquids would cascade through my ceiling. But if it was just a diplomatic meeting, why was I baking? I don't bake. Baking implies a level of domestic warmth that I discontinued 3 years ago. Yet, at 2 p.m., there I was, measuring flour on a digital scale that calibrates to the microgram. Shortbread, a recipe that demands cold hands and a cold heart. If you overwork the dough, the butter melts and the texture is ruined. It requires a detachment that suits me perfectly. I arranged the biscuits on a silver platter in a concentric circle. Perfect. Symmetrical. Safe. At 3:45 p.m., I went upstairs to change. I stood before my closet, staring at the rows of beige, cream, and navy blue, my armor. I reached for my usual gray cashmere cardigan, the one that says, "I am a respectable widow, do not approach." My hand hovered. Then, for reasons I cannot explain to a jury or a therapist, I reached further back. I pulled out a silk blouse I hadn't worn since a dinner party in 2018. It was green. Not a loud, vulgar green like Aurora's paints, but a deep forest green. Moss. Alive. I put it on. I looked in the mirror. The color brought a flush to my pale cheeks. I applied lipstick, just a touch more than necessary for a Tuesday afternoon. Ridiculous, I thought. You are dressing up for a woman who owns a purple sofa. At 3:59:50, I was standing by the door. At 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I waited 5 seconds. Eagerness is a sign of weakness, and opened the door. Aurora was standing there, and for the first time since the invasion began, I was speechless. She had kept her word. There was no paint. She had scrubbed herself raw. Her skin looked pink and scrubbed. Her wild gray hair was tamed into a messy bun held together by what looked like a chopstick. But it was her clothes that stopped me. She was wearing a black dress. It was simple, elegant, and clearly expensive, though it looked vintage. But being Aurora, she couldn't just be elegant. She had paired the black dress with a bright yellow scarf draped dramatically over one shoulder and those same heavy combat boots. She looked like a punk rock widow attending a gala. "I smell butter," she said, before even saying hello. Her eyes widened as she inhaled. "Real butter, not the margarine of sadness." "Hello, Aurora," I said, stepping aside. "Please, come in, and wipe your boots, vigorously." She stepped onto the doormat and performed an exaggerated tap dance, wiping her soles with theatrical intensity. "Sterilized," she announced, stepping into the hall. "I feel like I'm entering a surgical theater. Should I scrub up?" "Just don't touch the walls," I instructed, closing the door. "The wallpaper is Italian silk." She walked into the living room, the scene of yesterday's crime. The rug was there, spotless to the naked eye, though we both knew the ghost of the blue stain was hiding in the weave. Aurora spun around slowly, taking in the room. The beige sofas, the glass tables, the books arranged by height and color, the absolute lack of dust. "It's beautiful," she said, but her tone was strange. "You sound disappointed," I noted, moving toward the kitchen pass-through to get the coffee tray. "Not disappointed. It's just..." She walked over to the mantelpiece and looked at a framed photo of Roberto and me on a ski trip in the Alps. "It looks like a waiting room. A very expensive waiting room for a very important doctor. Does anyone actually live here, Marta? Or do you just curate the exhibit?" I set the silver tray down on the coffee table with a sharp clatter. "Order is not the absence of life, Aurora. It is the respect for it. Chaos consumes energy. Order preserves it." Aurora turned to me, her eyes twinkling. She sat down, not on the armchair that I had mentally assigned to her, but on the sofa, right next to where I would have to sit. She sat on the edge, as if ready to spring up. "And what are you saving all this energy for?" she asked. The question hung in the air, heavy and insolent. "Coffee," I said, ignoring her. "Black, no sugar. I assume your palate requires intensity." "You assume correctly." I poured. The liquid was dark, rich, and steaming. I handed her the delicate porcelain cup, her rough, calloused hands brushed against mine. The contrast of textures, my smooth, lotion-softened skin against her worker's hands, sent a jolt of static electricity up my arm. I pulled back too quickly. A drop of coffee splashed into the saucer. A mess. I reached for a napkin immediately. "Leave it," Aurora said softly. "Let it be imperfect." I hesitated. My instinct was to wipe it, to sanitize. But her gaze was holding mine, challenging me. I lowered the napkin. "So," I said, sitting down at a safe distance, "tell me about the sculpture, the one that blocked the door." Aurora took a bite of a shortbread biscuit. She closed her eyes and groaned, a sound of pure, unadulterated pleasure that felt scandalously loud in my living room. "Oh my God, Marta, this is sinful. This butter died for a noble cause." She swallowed and looked at me. "The sculpture. It's called The Weight of Expectations. It's made of old washing machine parts and bridal veils. It's about how domestic life grinds women down into dust." I took a sip of my coffee, keeping my face neutral. "Charming," I said, dryly. "And the blue fountain? The tsunami of despair?" "That was about my ex-husband." Ah, there it was, the chaotic backstory. "He left you?" I asked. It was the polite assumption. Aurora laughed. "No, I left him 20 years ago. He was a good man, solid, like this house. He wanted dinner at 7 and Sundays at the club. He wanted a wife who was a noun, and I was a verb. I was always doing, changing, moving. He wanted someone to be." She looked at the biscuit in her hand, crumbling the edge. She admitted, "I loved him, but I was suffocating, so I left. I took my paints and my chaos, and I lived in Paris, in Berlin, in a squat in New York. I lived." "And now you are here, in the suburbs, surrounded by nouns." "I got tired," she said simply. She looked older suddenly. The energy dropped. "I'm 58, Marta. My knees hurt when it rains. I wanted a garden. I wanted to see if I could be still without disappearing. But,"
She gestured to the wall between our houses. Old habits. I try to be still, and suddenly I'm building a fountain in the living room. She looked at me. Really looked at me. What about you? Your husband, the man in the photo. Did he let you be a verb? I stiffened. Roberto was a provider. He gave me security. He gave me this life. That's not what I asked. I was a librarian. I managed the archives. I liked the categorization of knowledge. Roberto thought it was, quaint. He preferred that I manage the house. So you cataloged the house, Aurora said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a diagnosis. You turned your life into the Dewey Decimal System. Is there something wrong with knowing where things belong? My voice rose slightly. Is there something wrong with wanting safety? You speak of freedom, Aurora, as if it's the only virtue. But freedom is cold. Freedom is lonely. I have seen your fridge. It has a bottle of wine and a jar of mustard. That is freedom. I have a pantry full of food for grandchildren who visit every other Sunday. That is duty. I prefer duty. Aurora set the cup down. She leaned forward. The scent of cinnamon and something floral drifted toward me. You're right. My fridge is depressing, and sometimes at 3 in the morning when I'm done painting...
10 o'clock at night. The witching hour. For the past 1,095 nights, 10 o'clock meant the same thing. The clicking of the front door deadbolt, double-checked. The activation of the security alarm, code 1598, the year of my birth, the swallowing of a calcium supplement, and the extinguishing of the bedside lamp. Sleep usually claimed me by 10:15 p.m. It was a physiological contract I had signed with my own body. But tonight, the contract was void. I was in my bedroom, yes. The lights were off, yes. But I was not in bed. I was standing by the window, hidden in the folds of the velvet drapes, like a spy in my own home. Across the small strip of darkness that separated our properties, Aurora's house was glowing. She had kept her promise. She hadn't closed the blinds. The scene was different tonight. There was no frantic dancing. There was no wine bottle being swung around like a baton. The living room was still, or as still as a room containing a cast-iron bathtub full of blue water could be. Aurora was sitting on a stool in front of a medium-sized canvas. She was painting, but her movements were slow, deliberate. She would touch the canvas, then pull her hand back as if the paint were hot. She wasn't attacking the art. She was negotiating with it. I watched her for an hour. I watched her rub her forehead with the back of her wrist, leaving a streak of yellow ochre on her skin. I watched her stop, put the brush down, and just stare at the wall for 10 minutes. She looked heavy. The explosive energy of the afternoon had evaporated, leaving behind a residue of exhaustion that I recognized intimately. It was the exhaustion of trying to make something meaningful in a world that mostly just wants you to be quiet.
I didn't take a shower. That was the first rule I broke. Usually, a shower is the reset button, the ablution that washes away the sleep and the sins of the night before. But I wanted to keep the smell of the whiskey and the memory of the rebellion on my skin. I wanted to stay in the green silk blouse I had pulled from the hamper. Wrinkled. Yes, me, wearing wrinkled silk, and the black trousers. I walked out the front door. I didn't check the alarm. I didn't lock the deadbolt. I left the house open, breathing, vulnerable to the world. The morning air was crisp, smelling of cut grass and two-stroke engine fuel. The silence had returned to the cul-de-sac, but the vibration of the chainsaw still hummed in my teeth. I walked across my perfect lawn. My feet sank into the manicured turf. I crossed the invisible property line, that DMZ of suburban etiquette, and stepped onto the jungle of number 405. Aurora was sitting on the purple velvet sofa. She looked like a warrior queen resting after a battle. The yellow raincoat was unzipped, revealing a paint-splattered tank top underneath. Her boots were covered in white plastic dust. The chainsaw sat on the grass at her feet, cooling down with quiet ticks. Scattered around her were the remains of the mannequin. A torso here, a plastic hand there. It looked like a crime scene in a department store. She saw me coming. She didn't smile immediately. She watched me with a wariness I hadn't seen before. Maybe she thought I was coming to deliver the letter from the homeowners association that Lucas had threatened. I stopped in front of the sofa. I looked at the severed head of the mannequin, which was resting near a dandelion. He looks better this way, less smug. Aurora let out a breath she seemed to have been holding. The wariness vanished, replaced by that solar flare grin. "He was judging me," she said, wiping sawdust from her forehead. "He had that look, the look that says, you should be doing Pilates, not heavy machinery." "My son has that look," I said. "I saw his car leaving. He drove fast. Did he escape, or was he evicted?" I looked back at my house. It stood there, tall, white, and symmetrical, a monument to the life I had built. But from here, from the vantage point of the purple sofa, it looked different. It looked lonely. "I think I scared him," I admitted. "I told him you were a bad influence, and that I hoped to be corrupted." Aurora laughed, throwing her head back. It was a sound that made my chest ache with a sudden, sharp longing. She patted the velvet cushion beside her. "Come, sit on the throne of bad decisions." I hesitated. Just for a microsecond. Then I sat. The velvet was soft, warm from the sun. It was completely incongruous with the outdoors. It felt illicit. It felt wonderful. We sat in silence for a moment, watching a squirrel investigate the chainsaw. "I've never painted," I said, suddenly. Aurora turned to look at me. The sun caught the gray strands in her hair, turning them into silver wires. "Never? Not even in kindergarten? Finger painting?" "I colored inside the lines. I was very good at it. I won a prize in the 2nd grade for a coloring book page of a farm. The teacher said my red barn was the most even red barn she had ever seen. No white spots, no scribbles." "A prodigy of containment," Aurora teased gently. "I'm tired of the lines, Aurora." My voice cracked. I hadn't realized how close the tears were until I spoke. "I'm so tired of making sure the red doesn't touch the green." Aurora reached out. Her hand, rough and warm, covered mine. She didn't squeeze. She just held it, anchoring me to the purple sofa, to the earth, to the moment. "Then let's make a mess," she whispered. We went inside her house. The living room was still a disaster zone of drying blue puddles and half-finished sketches, but she led me past that, to the back room. It was a space with huge windows facing the overgrown backyard. The smell of oil paint, turpentine, and linseed oil was thick here. It was the scent of creation. Aurora set up a fresh canvas on an easel. It was white,
terrifyingly, aggressively white. It stared at me, daring me to ruin it. "Here," she said. She handed me a palette knife. Not a brush. A knife. Brushes are for control. Knives are for feeling. She squeezed a glob of paint onto a wooden palette. Crimson. Thick. Visceral red. "What do?" I asked, holding the knife like a scalpel. "Whatever you want. Attack it. Caress it. Stab it. Just don't think. Thinking is forbidden in this room." I looked at the white canvas. I thought of the white ceiling in my living room. I thought of the white sheets on my empty bed. I thought of the silence that had filled my throat for 3 years. I dipped the knife into the red paint. I didn't gently apply it. I slashed. A thick, jagged line of crimson tore across the white perfection. It wasn't straight. It was angry. It was loud. I gasped. "Good," Aurora said, standing right behind me. I could feel her heat. Again. I took blue, the same blue that had stained my rug. I crossed the red. The colors mixed, turning into a muddy, violent purple. I scraped the paint down. I added yellow. I added black. I lost track of time. I wasn't Marta the widow. I wasn't Marta the librarian. I was just an arm, a hand, a force. I was sweating. I wiped my face, smearing paint on my cheek. I didn't care. After what felt like hours or minutes, I stopped. My arm was trembling. The canvas was a disaster. It was a swirling storm of collision and texture. It looked like a wound, but it also looked like a heart beating. I stepped back, breathing hard. "It's horrible," I whispered, delighted. "It's honest," Aurora corrected. She stepped around the easel, to face me. She looked at the painting, then she looked at me. Her gaze dropped to my paint-stained silk blouse. "You ruined your shirt," she said softly. I looked down. There was a streak of crimson right over my heart. It was an old shirt. It needed to be retired. Aurora stepped closer. There was no fence between us now. No wall, no social convention. There was just the smell of turpentine and the electric tension that had been building since the first time I saw her combat boots. She reached up and touched my face. Her thumb brushed against my cheekbone, wiping away a smudge of blue, or perhaps adding one. "You have a little chaos on your face, Marta," she murmured. "I'm trying," I breathed. "You're succeeding." She leaned in. The movement was slow, giving me every opportunity to retreat, to file a complaint, to run back to my beige sanctuary. I didn't retreat. I leaned forward. Her lips were dry, but her mouth was soft. It wasn't a movie kiss. It tasted of coffee and life. It was messy. It was asymmetrical. It was perfect. I felt the geometry of my world dissolve. The straight lines bent, the rigid structures collapsed into something softer, something that could breathe. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. We were both breathing in the syncopated rhythm of a jazz song. "So," she whispered, "what now, neighbor?" I opened my eyes. I saw the messy room. I saw the wild garden outside. I saw the woman who had broken my door down without ever touching it. "Now," I said, feeling the corners of my mouth turn up in a smile that felt completely new, "I think I need to borrow your chainsaw." Aurora laughed, and the sound vibrated through my bones. "The chainsaw? What for?" "I have a beige armchair that has